This is Insight. Phone lines are open. Dial 384-2191.
Into a Friday here in the middle of December, I guess, getting close to it here, the 11th on AM 1450 WDLB's Insight program. I'm Jeff Cannon with you. On the second Friday of the month, members of Marshfield PD join me here. Pull those a little bit closer to you there. That's right. He's got his mask on here. Pat Zepps, good morning.
Good morning.
Assistant Chief in charge at the present time here. What, if anything, can you tell us about the department's hierarchy here? How are things going to go? Are you in charge until further notice with the chief being on leave?
Correct. Yeah, that just would fall in my normal scope of responsibilities to cover when he's not available.
So at this point in time, we're just waiting for things to play out.
Correct.
The 21st of this month, as we're speaking to you now, as you're watching this, you could see us on Marshfield Media Access or on Channel 989 on your Charter Spectrum digital tier. I always say on this program, but some of the things we talk about by the time you see this, as it rotates through the month, may already be over with. But
right.
The 21st is a court date for Chief Gramza. He has not resigned. And at this point in time, we're just kind of waiting how things, the city and everybody's waiting to see how things play out and where things will go from here.
Correct. And as far as my scope of responsibility, I just remain focused on moving the department forward and handling the day-to-day operations. Big shout out to all the officers, civilian employees, our ordnance officers. Everybody has really, continued to do their job with some distractions, continued to stay focused. I would say morale is good. We remain positive, and really the biggest message is that we want to remain focused to why we're here, and that's our obligations to the community. So I just want to show everybody that that's our scope of focus, and that's what we're staying true to.
Now, as we get into the end of the year here and things are beginning to wrap up, we don't know how things necessarily are going to shake down here, but is it customary to then post, if the chief were no longer to be chief, that it would be posted, or is it do you get a move up in rank in your position?
No, I really don't have a definitive answer for that. That would fall within the scope of the Police and Fire Commission. Most likely there would be a process, some applications, and just to kind of gauge interest, and then whatever process they would deem to put in place to make the next selection. So, and again, that's so far down the line in my mind that I really don't put much thought into that.
Oh, sure you do.
No.
Would you interested in the job?
Yeah, well, that's a complicated...
You had to thought about that.
It's a complicated question, and what I want is, and this is going to sound like a politically correct answer, I want what's best for the department, and I really do want them to remain focused on why they're here, and, so I don't really get caught up into those types of things because there's some challenges right now that we need to focus on. So, and not knowing what the outcome will be, that's just not some place that I go right now. I really do take it day by day. We're moving forward. We're making assignments. We're handling things as they come. Great team effort. So again, that probably sounds like a politically correct answer, but that's the best one I'm going to be able to give you.
Well, people want to know. I mean, is there distractions enough to cause people to be thinking other things when they should be on the job?
I don't think so. And that's why I've got, my lieutenants here. They really are the eyes and ears to see how things are going on the boots on the ground level. And I make it a point to try to get out and talk with officers, civilian employees, hop in, see how things are going. And I really do see a group of people who are focused on their job. They're positive. They want to move forward. I would say morale under the circumstances is very good when you really look at what the definition of that is. There is great focus, and the dedication of the community has not changed, regardless of who sits at the end of the hallway. Our mission is to provide the best service we can to the citizens.
The other problem you have is manpower due to health reasons and concerns.
Yeah, I'm going to have to knock on wood for that one because we're sitting really well right now. We've gone through some struggles. We've had some quarantines, some positive tests, but at this point in time, everybody is back. So, we've put some things in place at the department that I think have really helped us kind of weather the storm. We've limited some travel. Access to the building is done on a must type of access however you want to call that. But we do require people to wear masks, and we do social distance within the building to the extent that we can, and it's worked. So we're weathering the storm.
Now, the access to the law enforcement building here in Marshfield in the front lobby was always limited, but you did take people back from time to time. You need to talk to people about certain things that are happening.
Right.
Are you still able to do that, or are you meeting off-site?
No, we still do that. When I say limited access, what we've really scoped down is tours, people visiting, those types of things. Spring has always been a really big tour time for us with the schools. Also ride-alongs. We've really scaled back. We're not doing any ride-alongs, which, again, on the community side, it's not ideal because we really want people to come into the building and see how things are going and be interested in ride-alongs. But, hey, safety's got to come first right now, and we got to make sure that we are staffed to respond to everything. So.
Lieutenant Jody Gerink is here as well, but I'm talking administrative stuff, so I'll let the
He's not interested in that.
I'll let the administrator do that, the paperwork portion of the show here. In keeping manpower up, and training is still going on a regular schedule as it was before time?
It is, and that's an interesting point. One of the things that we've had to do is look more towards virtual training, and that really has been the trend, across the profession now. And we're required to get 24 hours of training every year. The state of Wisconsin requires that for us to keep our certification. So that was a struggle early on, and it was a struggle last year because a lot of the trainings were being shut down. And that 24 hours really can cover any wide range of things. But that is back in place this year, so the expectation is that every officer is going to get a minimum of 24 hours. We've typically gone over that, but a lot of it's going to be virtual, and there's a lot of freedom out there to look and see what's available. There are some mandated trainings that we have to have. We've still got to qualify yearly with firearms. We still have to qualify for pursuit and emergency vehicle operations course, and we still have to qualify for defensive and arrest tactics. So those things remain in place, but training's moving ahead. It's just, more on the virtual side.
Well, that's kind of where I was thinking, is that in your job as law enforcement, how much training can you really do virtual? I mean, we can talk about it, but you need to do it.
Yeah, hands-on is a big part of it. And so virtual is limited in those areas. And some of those trainings are going on because there's really no way to simulate, a defensive and arrest tactic. You've got to practice that. You can watch videos and watch scenarios and watch what's happened in other departments. You can really gain a lot of insight into how people handle things, but the physical act of doing some of the tasks, we have to be hands-on.
Talking with Marshfield PD here, Assistant Chief Pat Zepp's in here, along with Lieutenant Jody Gerink on today's program. You can call us 384-2191, 384-2192. Talking about the staffing situation, not only with the absence of chief in place, but also with the pandemic here and close proximities and how you are dealing with public. I mean, it's your job to do that on a daily basis, and you don't know who you're dealing with or situations you're going into, especially if it's a home or, meeting someone. Just, come on out here probably is now more of a standard operating procedure than going in and talking to someone. But we live in Wisconsin. I laughed when they said, for Thanksgiving, leave the windows open. I said, you don't live around here, do you? I'm not going to leave the windows open on Thanksgiving around here. So having to go outside and do those kind of things is also a consideration as opposed to being indoors.
Yeah, and ideally, I think if you can get complaints taken outside, that's a better situation for everybody. We've also gone to taking some of the lower, less complicated complaints by phone. Traditionally, we love the face-to-face, so any type of call that came in, we want officers to go there and have the face-to-face interaction. But because of some of those lower-level calls that we can handle over the phone, we've done some of that. And the other thing is we don't want to spread it either. I mean, we're concerned that we keep ourselves and the department healthy so that we can provide the services. But the other thing is we don't want to spread it to somebody unknowingly that if we have it. So, it's really kind of a mutual thing on our part to make sure that we do our part to not spread it.
Some of the executive orders, mandates, whatever you want to call them, have been issued around the country. Various law enforcement departments have come out and said, I can't enforce that. I would imagine in your line of work, you've probably thought the same thing. What can we and don't we? And I would imagine sometimes people will call and say, can you go over and do something about that? They're not they're not masked up, the way they should be, or they're gathering in a party. And do you respond to those, or can you?
What do you think, Jody?
Well, we haven't had a whole bunch of those. I think people are more understanding as to what we're dealing with. In the beginning, we went to a good number of those types of complaints. Yes, we can respond, and I think that we need to deal with those situations one at a time and at a case-by-case basis. And, we hope that we can err on the side of common sense, and everybody has to understand, like Pat says, we're getting through this together. So we got to work together to make it happen. So,
in your position, do you shift command ever, as lieutenant?
that is my position as a shift commander.
What shift?
I'm on shift 2.
At this point in time, how often do they change?
Well, we have a yearly shift pick, but pretty much I'll stay on shift 2 until Pat says I'm not anymore.
Or we find somebody better.
Yeah, which couldn't happen.
Well, we got enough holes right now. You just stay where you are. Talking with Lieutenant Jody Gehring and Assistant Chief Pat Zepps here on today's program. You can too, 384-2191, 384-2192, coming to you live on WDLB Radio. I say that because we're also on video from Marshfield Media Access and also on the 989 channel of your Charter Spectrum Digital tier. And you can watch us there throughout the month, so some of the things we talk about may have already been resolved. This, for a change, I don't know that it's a good thing, but you've been a little more active here as far as things that people see. Pursuit in the city comes into our city. Mm-hmm. How was that handled? I mean, they knew at the time that they were following somebody who wasn't going to stop, and he's headed our way. What was the procedure for letting you know that, and what did you do about it?
We, Spencer PD actually initiated that pursuit and was able to get a hold of us through our dispatch, saying that he was en route to the city. The vehicle was actually reported stolen from our city. So as Spencer came into the city limits, then our officers took over the pursuit at that time, and Spencer went into a supporting role for us during that pursuit.
Was counties involved at all?
No, just Spencer PD and us, and then Wood County did assist at the towards the end of it. So I guess county did come and help a little bit towards the end.
Well, for those who are listening or watching that didn't know what happened once he didn't stop, and was it high speed in the city, or what? How to describe the action, if you will?
Yeah, there was. He came southbound on Highway 13. At one point, crossed the median and nearly struck one of our officers head on. That was coming up to get into the pursuit. We did follow him throughout the city, where we ended up near the clinic, and then ultimately ended up on North Peach, where he jumped out of the passenger side of the vehicle, and vehicle did strike a mailbox and that sort of stuff, and he pursued on foot, and then our officers and assistant chief pursued on foot and were able to apprehend him.
I just happened to be riding with Jody, so.
Get out and run.
You got it.
Well,
Yeah.
It seems to me that, as it's at my house, in my neighborhood, I don't want to have bullets flying. I mean, what's your procedure for something like that? I mean, he's felony charges.
There are felony charges, actually several felony charges.
But you don't have to have deadly force used. I mean, you could have got the dog, probably, right?
The dog did respond, but we had the person apprehended prior to the dog being in position. So,
I guess that comes into the physical fitness test.
well, it's there are times where we need to run, and this was an incident where we could do that safely. It was daylight. We never lost sight of the person, so it was a good time to pursue him, and we could do it safely.
I've been witness to pursuits in the dark, and that's a little more challenging.
It is.
Neighborhood fences, behind sheds, places where you're a little more on edge. You come around a corner and you don't know what they have in their hand. They might have picked up an iron bar, or you don't know what's happening, and so you can understand why people, we've seen over this past year and a half, many on national TV where people were gunned down. And that's easy to say when you're watching it. Well, he only had a cell phone in his hand. Well, I don't know, what he's got in his hand, and if he didn't respond the way I asked him to, then immediately your mind begins to go to, what's he going to do? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, here in the daylight, it's a little bit easier to keep track of people. And did you come in from all sides? I mean, Apple on the north side or on the east side?
We had myself and another officer were the closest ones when he fled on foot. And then we have our whole shift was involved, but most of the time we don't want to have all of our squads pursuing. We want to have some moving ahead of the chase so we can maybe use spike strips or be in position for this types of situations. So the other units kind of moved in the direction that we could surround that area and were able to set up a perimeter.
How many do you have that can then respond to something else happening in another part of the city?
In these types of situations, that if something else came up, that pursuit is going to take precedence until there's something that's life threatening or something more pressing happens, which we would cut off of the pursuit and we would peel officers off. Or Wood County and Marathon County have always been excellent as far as stepping in and helping out in those situations. So.
Talking with Lieutenant Jody Gerink and Assistant Chief Pat Zepps here of Marshfield PD this second Friday of the month, as we do monthly here on AM 1450 WDLB's Insight program. And you can too, 384-2191, 384-2192 on the issue today.
Okay, stop what you're doing for the next 60 seconds and hear this. This could change your life. Seahaver Broadcasting is looking for our next radio marketing consultant for some of the most successful radio stations in central Wisconsin. Marshfield's own 1450 WDLB, ESPN Radio 92.3 WOSQ, News and Sports Talk Radio, WFHR, and 105.5 WLJY. This is your opportunity to be part of an exciting career and a growing company. If you're looking to build a new career, are creative, positive, and outgoing, this opportunity could change your life. Apply today. Send your resume to our corporate advertising manager, Terry Stevenson, at terry@WOMTradio.com. That's Terry at WOMTradio.com. Or call 920-242-0560. 920-242-0560. Change your life today. Seahaver Broadcasting is an equal opportunity employer.
Are you looking for easy gift ideas this holiday season? No worries. Hewitt's Meats has it covered, and they ship gift boxes filled with their award-winning products nationwide. Over 28 options to choose from, like cheese and sausage sampler, cheese and sausage snack sticks, ham and turkey, breakfast meat sampler, and more. Order online at www.hewittsmeats.com. Free regional shipping. Stop into their store at 210 Downwind Drive in Marshfield, or order online at www.hewittsmeats.com. O Holy Night, O Night Divine. O Holy Night when Christ was born. Jeff Ertl Trucking of Auburndale would like to thank all their customers this past year, along with all the first responders, police and military, and their families, in wishing them joy and happiness this Christmas season. May there be peace and goodwill to all. From Jeff Ertl Trucking of Auburndale.
AM 1450 WDLB's Inside program. I'm Jeff Cannon with you, coming to you on this second Friday in the month of December, as we were just talking here off mic, flies by. Wow. It seems like, even, and I talked about this in the summer, and I'm sure in your lives as well, the benchmarks that were the Dairy Fest and the fair and things, they didn't exist. So you just kind of, all of a sudden you put your head up and go, wow, it's that time already? You don't have that sense of.
Yeah, no Hub City days, no fair, no, June Dairy days.
Yeah.
Did you save anything on auxiliary, or was there any differences in your I don't want to keep it on budget, but necessarily just manpower type things that you saved on overtime or anything like that?
It does. I mean, there's a lot of those events where some of that's billed back to the event organizers or coordinators. So, but what it really boils down to is we're going to staff it. We're going to have extra people if it comes down to a safety issue, whether that's part of the agreement or not. So, yeah, I mean, there's savings across the board for a lot of entities. Ones, even if they're paying from the outside, they didn't use us. So, budgetarily, yeah, there's an impact there.
This time of the year here now, as I'm talking to you, we're on the 11th. Yesterday on the 10th, 51 degrees. Without the snowfall in the area, that's kind of taken up those fender benders and stuff. When those days, you know when it's coming, that it's going to be an active day.
Yeah, nobody wants to work the first snow day.
Understandably. A lot of paperwork there.
There is.
Filling out things that are probably going to be needed by insurance companies and things like that. Is it still that much, or has the body cam or anything alleviated some of the, here, just you give them that and say, here.
We still have to do the reports and everything with body cameras. Where the body cameras come in handy for us is we're able to review that when we do reports, and it helps to recollect. And we do the same Axon system that runs our body cameras also houses all of our photographs. So when we take photographs, we upload them onto this Axon system, and so it makes it very convenient to send that to insurance companies or wherever we need to send the photos to. So
how much of that is really, I don't want to use subpoena, but requested?
If it has to do with a case that goes to trial, all of it. So, it's exculpatory evidence, so we would have to submit any photographs or videos that we have.
I don't know how many of these actually go to lawyers in a trial, unless there's some sort of injury involved.
As far as accidents, I think most of the ones through my career have been handled without my involvement, either through the insurance companies. There may be some people may contest a citation that was issued or that sort of thing, but as far as the meat and potatoes of that crash is usually handled outside of the department.
Is it, policy that there's usually a citation issued?
No, we don't. One misconception I think that people have is that
somebody's going to get it.
Well, they feel that the police department determines who's at fault, and that's really not true. What we need to determine is during the investigation if there's been any laws that have been violated during the course of this crash. So necessarily, not necessarily that somebody gets a ticket, the insurance company may not find them at fault. It's just we're enforcing the law that's been broken during that crash, and the insurance company sorts through who is at fault. So that's kind of on them.
Well, following too close or not proper distance is one of those that's kind of arbitrary on your part, though.
Right, it could play in their decision.
Yeah.
It would strongly indicate fault.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, we don't determine who is at fault. We just enforce any laws that might have been broken during the course of the crash.
And there will be those coming up here, I'm sure. I mean, all of us, even you guys, you get your winter legs or your winter driving on, and you don't realize you came up to that stop sign that fast. And,
there's been the occasional squad accident. So.
Yes.
Yeah, not only get run into, but run into.
Yes,
sure.
We're human.
Well, you figure you got officers out there driving, the better part of a 12-hour shift. Those things are bound to happen, and honestly, I'm really thankful that they don't happen as often as you might think. Mm-hmm. So. But yeah, they do happen.
Well, now you got pickup trucks, so you can sustain a little more than some of the others, but so do most other people. If you look around at what people are driving now.
Yeah,
cars get bigger.
There aren't many sedans anymore. I don't even think the car companies make them.
Yeah, pretty much. I think our whole fleet now is
SUVs
all-wheel drive.
And pickups. Yeah.
So everything that we have as a first-line squad is all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive capable. So that's kind of a big change here in the last few years. We started with two-wheel drives. All our sedans were two-wheel drives. Even when we went to the Chevy Tahoes, they were two-wheel, rear-wheel drives. So we didn't
have four-wheel drives until the Explorer.
Until the Explorers, yeah.
So
4 Explorers.
Well, the old days it was the perception that you had the big 454 Interceptor in there and nobody's going to outrun you. But nowadays you're looking at a high-sitting SUV or pickup truck type vehicle. Is that something you can keep up with, or do you have other means? Or
if it and Jody can weigh in on this. If it gets to the speed where we can't keep up with it, we probably shouldn't be trying to.
Yeah, these vehicles are our Explorers are pursuit rated, which really just means they have better brakes on it. They've got a little bit stronger alternator. It doesn't really make them that much more fast. But these, the vehicles that the citizens have are production vehicles for the most part as well. Our vehicles are pretty much production vehicles, so it's not really the matter of keeping up with speed. It's having, the safe distances in between us, and if we don't see them anymore, if we're pursuing them, we have to stop that pursuit.
Is that the policy?
If you
get out of sight?
Yeah, if we don't chase, clouds of dust.
Because you're in the city. It
Right.
might be different for a sheriff's deputy.
No, even if you're in the sheriff's, out in the county, our pursuit goes into the county, which it does happen. We're not going to chase clouds of dust. We need to know that, we're chasing the actual person that we started this pursuit with. So,
In this recent one around the city here, how did that play out in that manner?
we always had visual contact of him. And our distances were actually very good, considering the city. The city, sometimes if your distances get too much, it's even more dangerous because there's so many places that somebody could come from. There's more intersections and alleys and driveways. And so, but our distances were very good from what I observed.
And at some point, we're only going to let this go on for so long.
Mm-hmm.
If he's not stopping and we can't get spikes out or get him to stop some other means, we're going to stop that chase and we'll live to fight another day, and so will that individual. But, the last thing we want to do is put the community at unnecessary risk. So the officers are very good. They realize the parameters. They realize the things to consider when they pursue, traffic density, time of day, weather, pedestrian traffic, potentially. Are they near a school zone? So all these things should be running through an officer's mind. And any officer at any time can terminate a pursuit. Mm-hmm. That doesn't have to come from a supervisor. Basically, from the officer on up, anybody can terminate that pursuit. So.
And, it kind of ticks you off. What do you do from there? Do you just say, I got the plate, and we're waiting for him to pop up somewhere else?
If we can get a license plate, this one is a little bit different because, that vehicle was stolen. So we knew that vehicle was stolen, so the owner of that vehicle obviously isn't in that car. In most cases, there's Wisconsin has owner liability. So if we get a license plate, there's a potential that the owner of that vehicle could be charged with that pursuit, whether or not they were driving. So they should be able to tell us who was in the car, or they could be charged with it. So wait
a minute. If my car was stolen, I'm liable?
Not if it's stolen.
Nope. If the car's not reported stolen, but we get behind your vehicle, it comes back to you, and we get involved in a pursuit, and the pursuit gets to be to where we don't apprehend whoever's in the car.
Yep.
Wisconsin says that we can come back and charge the registered owner if they don't help us determine who actually was in the vehicle. So there's a responsibility to that owner for that vehicle. That's why it's so important that when you sell your car, don't sell the plates with it. Wisconsin says you take your license plates off of that vehicle, and then the new person has to get a temporary plate and get the plates going. If you sell a car with your plates on it and that person becomes involved in a pursuit with us, there's a potential it could come back to you until we can prove who has the car.
I often thought about that with these vehicles that are wrapped. Rather than unwrap them, I would like to buy one that is. I would like to buy a radio station vehicle. It might have been Arizona, I don't know, but I just and just drive it around. But then it looks like they're, from their standpoint, they're like, well, what are you going to do with this thing? Go rob banks?
Right.
Why do you? So they take all their stuff off of it. But it would be cool to, ride around with a vehicle that's wrapped up Sunny 106 or whatever it is, And
I'll tell you, I have seen vehicles sold by law enforcement agencies where they don't take some of those wraps off. So you might see a black and white car running out there that has a white wrap on it that was just never taken off. When we sell vehicles, we take all of that wrap off. So it can be a little misleading.
Yeah, they sell them in that paint scheme. Mm-hmm. I've seen them where the black or white over black. Mm-hmm. And if it comes with a spotlight on it, was that made for law enforcement, or is that something you can buy?
Yeah, oftentimes the individual car companies will have those packages that has that. But our Ford F-150s, for instance, didn't have the spotlights. We had those added aftermarket. So if it's made as a squad car, it usually comes with that spotlight.
Talking with Lieutenant Jody Gerink and Assistant Chief Pat Zepps here on this second Friday in the month of December on AM 1450 WDLB's Insight. If you're listening live, you can join us at 384-2191, 384-2192. Either one of those numbers should get you in here. I need you to tell me when I'm looking the wrong way, so if you see that blinking, let me know. Otherwise, you're watching us in video here on MarshfieldMediaAccess.org, or you could be watching us at the 989 channel on a Charter Spectrum digital tier in your cable television throughout the month, along with government channels. We talked about a pursuit that happened here, but not too far down the street. I couldn't imagine what was going on with that many vehicles from that many agencies happening when there was a bomb situation. And it lasted for a while, because in that neighborhood, I go by there and I'm thinking they're still sitting there. So that fire truck sat there for over 24 hours, I think. And there were other agencies there, and at first I thought maybe it was a hostage situation, but I didn't stop and look down. It didn't rubberneck quite that bad here, so that I can give you some more business by having a car accident out in front of the...
Auto following too closely up there.
That could be.
Yeah.
I don't know, is there a certificate for rubbernecking? Or,
Maybe.
yeah, we'll make one, right?
Yeah.
Remember in your case. No, but I'll let you explain what happened there from the first call, and then there was a second call.
Yeah, the first call, there was basically a family member was in another family member's apartment over there on East Harrison and found some items that appeared to be pipe bombs or something similar. So at that point, we back out, we decide, do we need to evacuate? Do we need to move some people around? And then we rely on the Marathon County Bomb Squad to really walk us through that. And the reason I think it takes so long is because they take every precaution to try to understand what they're dealing with. And it can be a put out for the people who live there. We completely acknowledge that. But at the end of the day, to get the suspected devices out safely, it's a relatively lengthy process. And that's really what it amounted to at this time. It's still under investigation as far as what those devices were or what actually was in them. So there'll be some news coming out at some point if charges are requested and who that individual is. But for right now, there's just some more checking to go into it. But it's a lengthy process. I mean, they're going to throw all caution to the wind to try to get in there, take a look at what they're dealing with, try to figure out the best way to get it out, even to get it out of the apartment building. So, yeah, it went on for some time. The reason we were brought back a second time is that more devices were found that initially weren't found in somewhat of a separate location, still tied to the same apartment. So that brought us back the second time to remove those devices as well. So,
when you're dealing with someone who's in an apartment complex with a lot of other innocent people, an eightplex or whatever, and you have bomb equipment involved, does the person just come out? I mean, do you give them a call and say, "Hey, come down and get your pizza," or how do you? Your package is here. Come on out, and get it. Or how do you get them out of there safely without having a confrontation?
Well, in this case, the person wasn't present. There was a family member in there who had seen it. So, but generally, yeah, I mean, that's if you receive information that someone's in an apartment with something like that, there are so many circumstances involved. It could be as simple as a call to say, "Hey, can we come talk to you about something?" depending on where we got the information. But again, you're going to go into a matrix of decision making that really puts the safety of the people in the apartment complex first, the individual in the apartment. And there are so many directions that can go. But yeah, I mean, it could be as simple as calling up and saying, "Hey, can you come down and talk to us?" Well,
if he's a pipe bomb maker, it's not something you identify yourself as being the police department.
Every situation is so different, Not everyone that makes pipe bombs has ill intent. Some people are preppers. Some people are into just learning how to do those sorts of things. So we have to try to understand who we're actually dealing with at that time and figure out, what the situation calls for.
What's the stuff is it taconite or tanite?
Tannerite.
Tannerite. Yeah, that's stuff that people can buy. I mean, you don't know where you're walking into a situation here where people can cause some real destruction here as it comes in.
We're very thankful, and just a big shout out to the Marathon County Bomb Squad again, and the Marshfield Fire and Rescue and all the agencies that helped us. Having a resource like that historically, back in the old days, the closest bomb squad, and I say old days, I'm dating myself, we've been around a while, the closest bomb squad was out of Fort McCoy. And that could take quite some time to get mobilized and to the city of Marshfield. I know we've used them on a couple of instances that I remember. So to have the availability of a bomb squad just north of the city has really been beneficial for us.
So taking this from my limited knowledge of how it works on TV, did the guy go in with the suit on and go in there and assess what he was dealing with before he picked it up and then see if he could put it in the big tub outside, or how did that work?
They do have a couple of pretty sophisticated robots that they use, and they do have the big suit as well. So I'm not sure what they use in this one, but they are well equipped and well trained to handle those situations.
I heard the FBI was up here as well, probably out of Milwaukee or something. Is that a natural course of?
It could be, yeah. I mean, it just depends on, again, what you have, because there's different people of varying expertise that we're never going to hesitate to reach out to them. Mm-hmm. Similar to if there's a very serious crime of a violent nature, we may use the Wisconsin Crime Lab. And so FBI offices, I don't know if there was an FBI agent that came out of the office in Wausau or Milwaukee. I don't have an answer to that, yeah.
They might have been, and when I think of that, the first thing my mind jumps to is maybe they were tied to a group, that these guys, the FBI was following and wanted to know what this person was doing, because he may have been linked to a group of malcontents of some kind.
I can tell you right now, there's no information pointing to that, that there was an ill intent or a targeted intent with these devices, or that the individual was tied to something more than just doing it. I can't definitively tell you that it won't go there, but there's nothing at this point pointing to that.
Now, is your agency lead investigator on this for charges to the DA?
They would be, yep. And again, they would use the external resources, experts in the field, the bomb squad, to try to determine what the devices are, where does it fall into the scope of statute, because ultimately we want to get the correct statute. And there'd be some conversations with the district attorney also, as far as what's the appropriate charge to make sure that we get that right.
Well, not digging too deep, but within your office here, then your personnel are in charge of writing their reports and getting all that information so that it can all be presented to the DA. And that, you wonder what detectives do on the job. That's a lot of time spent in this case here of assembling all from different agencies the things that are going on so that it can be presented in a folder to the DA for inspection.
Right, and we have to know exactly what we're dealing with. So what's in the devices, we don't even have an idea. We have to investigate exactly what's inside the devices and find out if that's illegal and all the intents. So there's a lot of rabbit holes that the investigations could go down.
And there may or may not be what we would think of. And the first thing in the headline is, that people hear is, well, bomb. There may or may not have been. You could open it up and find out there's, apple seeds in there.
Yep. And of course, we're going to treat it as though it's a bomb, no matter, because it appeared to be a pipe bomb type item. So until we know for sure that it is safe, we're not going to pick it up and throw it around. So,
yeah.
Yeah, we're fully comfortable with a bit of an overreaction.
Absolutely.
In some people's eyes than to ever underreact. We'll take that any day. So.
Well, at least something different on the shift today.
Yeah, it wasn't boring.
You never know what you're going to see.
Yeah. So when you have people like that, do you just change shifts then and say, okay, when you come in today, you're going to be stationed here? Or do you?
Yeah, possibly. There's been some instances that, some of the bigger instances that we have that we would hold the shift over. We could hold them over as much as 4 hours, and then so the new shift would come in and either relieve some of the people, but we still have to handle calls. We still have to provide the service to the city. So we may hold people over. We may call people in. We may ask for mutual aid from neighboring agencies, and all kinds of tricks that we might use depending on the situation.
What was, just in case that ever, people are listening, whatever happened, I mean, with the neighbors? Did you completely evacuate the building, and what happened to them? Did they get a overnight motel stay, or what happened there?
Yeah, when I spoke to the lieutenant, they were finding alternate places for we're not just going to have them go out onto the street, so they were finding places for them to go. A lot of times you'll just give them the option. Most people have a family member or a friend that they're willing to go to for a few hours, and that's where most people go. just, hey, is there someplace you can go? And we'll leave it up to them to find a place. If they absolutely do not find a place or have anywhere to go, we will definitely find some place, whether it's a hotel room. We might rely on the United Way or the Red Cross to help us set something up. We do have the ability to put people up in hotels. So honestly, though, most people generally find a place to go for a few hours, and they're good with that because they want to make sure that everything's safe before they come back. So,
just if you're joining us here, referring to a bomb scare, what do you call it? Bomb
That's a good word.
Incident. I mean, at the time, there was something found. Only the investigation will determine what that actually is and how, what the intent was, maybe, of the person who had the equipment that was deemed to be dangerous. So we're talking about that and how things are handled because, one, it doesn't happen that often, thank goodness, and two is that if, just curious as to whatever did happen, how does stuff like this handled? You can join us, 384-2191, 384-2192 here on this second Friday in the month of December on WDLB's Insight. AM 1450 WDLB's Insight program this second Friday of the month of December. You know that if you're listening live here on radio, but you may be watching us on video at marshfieldmediaaccess.org at some day in the future on channel 989 on your Charter Spectrum digital tier. As the government channels, we rotate through some of the, what's the word I want to use? Not civic, but the city employees, whether we talk with the mayor or we talk with the police department or even sometimes with the sheriff's department or Wood County board here, our regular guests on the Fridays throughout the month as we rotate through. So we want to bring you that information and give you the opportunity to talk here live on the radio on AM 1450 WDLB. So we talk with the Lieutenant Jody Gehring and Assistant Chief Pat Zepps here. We've, just to catch you up, we talked about the chief situation. We've talked about the COVID situation with staffing at the department. Seems to be back into, you're up to snuff again and everybody's back and you got the antibodies. I don't know what that means.
Some do. I mean, I would assume some do.
I don't know what that means. Today I heard, on TV some conflicting information. Antibodies for this doesn't mean it's good for that. And it's
Right.
This whole thing has been a confluence of everybody's doing it on the fly.
Right.
I'll tell you, that's one of the biggest challenges is to try to take all the information that you can to try to come up with the best way to move forward. And another thing I'm going to do is give a shout out to the Wood County Health Department because we have relied on them through this whole thing, and we've really kind of stuck with their guidance, even waiting for them to accept whatever new CDC guideline might be coming out. But they've just been an invaluable resource. I know they're overworked and understaffed, and I can't thank them enough for the assistance they've given us, at least regardless of what you think about the virus or masks or any of these things. We're going to generally follow what they tell us to do because I operate under the impression that they probably know more about this than I do. So been great to work with them.
Some citizens have been surprised. Those who have been in any kind of bar or restaurant are not, but they've been surprised about the amount of authority that they have at the health department. Now, have they ever called on you to enforce or back up anything that they've said? I mean, they can shut down somebody for health violations. So who enforces that?
Yeah, to my knowledge, they have not called us, and this also is a testament to, the local businesses that really are struggling, but want to find that middle ground as far as, what can they do, how do they stay open, and what can they do to make it safe. And I'm going to be honest with you, when I go into restaurants and things, I see an overwhelming amount of effort on their part to distance tables, to put up whatever protection is necessary. The staff has been wonderful on the ones that I've gone into. So I'm going to be honest and say that the vast majority of anything that I've ever seen has been really good in trying to work with the health department to get to where everybody's safer.
Well, when I had my chance in the quarantine, I got a letter from them that said I could be cited if I was seen out and about as a health hazard for the community. And I'm thinking, well, who's going to do that? I mean, they don't have a pad that they write stuff out
Right.
with. But they do have that in there that you can be cited for non-cooperation with health department. And I thought, well, there's one. I mean, I don't know who's going to do that, and I imagine there's a few people who will push it.
Yeah, and that would be a new one that we would have to walk through as far as if it ever came to that. I know when businesses are cited by the health department, that's not something that comes through our office. So they do have the ability to issue some sort of, whatever you want to call it, a citation of some kind for a violation. And I don't know, because again, this is going to go to my lack of experience. We haven't had to go down this road. I don't know what that generally looks like or entails.
Well, eventually, because you're licensed, that's going to come up. And, you can't get a new renewal if you don't have a clear record, if you haven't cleared up your violations or whatever. So, I mean, you can still go, but eventually the rope's going to get shorter, and there'll be a snare at the end.
Right.
So...
And I know other agencies, across the country have taken some stances, and there is enforcement going on in those areas. It just has not gotten to that level here, and I'm thankful for that and hopeful that it doesn't.
It's a different time we live in, that's for sure, right? I mean, in dealing with the public and asking cooperation. I mean, I don't know how much you've had experience with that over the years. You ask people to stay away from Peach and Harrison, it seems like traffic picks up.
Right.
Years ago, on a scanner, people would say, geez, I don't let them hear what's going on, because if anybody could buy a Bearcat scanner years ago, and they'd be rubbernecking and getting in the way and doing all those kind of things. And yet, on the other hand, people are saying, well, you're being so close to the vest and so secretive. What's the deal here, I mean, investigations, this thing into the chief and stuff, people just didn't know what was going on.
Right.
And
they became angry.
Yeah. And I understand that. And I've been doing this job a long time as Lieutenant Gurink and many people at the department. There is a process that has to play out, and it's for the integrity of the investigation. It's for the fairness of all parties involved. Because the last thing that you want at the end of any investigation is to realize that you've missed something. And again, that's for the benefit of any victim, any suspect. So that takes some time, and I know that that's one of the bigger challenges with this, is to sit back and say, well, we're going on 4 months or 5 months or whatnot. But, again, as a department, we're not involved in any of that. But generally, when it comes to investigations, the same rules apply. That there is, oftentimes investigations set their own timeline. What you go in believing may not be where you end up at the end of it. So, I just want to assure people that I think it's being done correctly. I think it's being handled correctly. We're not privy to any of those details. Our role is to keep the department moving forward and run the day-to-day operations. But at the end of it, we want to be able to say that this was done correctly and put it behind us.
Can you say whether or not there's been any talk about the policy changes or investigating policy as to fraternization on or off the job? Certainly on the job would be not a good thing. That seems like that'd be a policy that you'd already have. But
there are policies in place that are designed to address those things, and that's what I can tell you on that. So we do have policies that address those things.
I can't imagine they wouldn't be readdressed at some point in time, or a few word changes here or added there.
Well, interestingly enough, we do have a system now, and it's an online system for our policy manual, that every month 30, what they're called daily training bulletins, go out. And what those are designed to do is it's a series of 30 questions that tie back to the policy manual. And so these policies are continually revisited, and at the end of it, we're able to show that officers did revisit these policies. And there's also a method to track to make sure officers have read the policies and signed off on them. So we do have those things in place now, and we've had those in place for several years.
Well, I don't know if they're working.
Well,
that's all as a citizen I can say.
Right, and the only thing I can really tell you to that is I think we have an agency that is very infused with integrity. And I don't know what the outcome of this will be, and I try to remain unbiased and outside of it, because I realize what my focus is. But I can tell you again that there are the people that work for the Marshfield Police Department are of high integrity. They are focused on their job. They have character. They have ethical compasses, and I would throw that out there to the community to try to alleviate any concern that there's some sort of a deeper cultural issue, because I don't see that.
Well, I'm going to leave it with the fact that you already know there's going to be names and things that are going to come up here, and there's a lot more to be said about the situation yet before this ends, either this month or next, or in the
Right.
future as it plays out here.
Right.
All right. Thank you, Pat Zepps, Assistant Chief, Lieutenant Jody Gehring, here on today's Insight program with Marshfield